Now, it's another 2-game week at St Mary's. Hull City are the visitors on Tuesday night. So I'm pleased to say that to help us preview this one, Ant is with us, Ant Northgraves from the To Hull and Back podcast. Welcome back. Good to see you, Ant. I know we caught up back in October, I think, wasn't it? There's been a lot of football that's been played there. Let's just talk about the weekend. You left it late.
We did very late. That's probably the favourite goal we've scored for that I've celebrated in a long time. We've got a habit at the minute of going in front in games and then having a second half of biting your nails and being under the cosh a bit. So I'm not sure that tactical work at St Mary's. So I'm hoping that we've gone maybe a bit more positive instead of trying to hold on to 1-0 leads because it's jarring as a fan.
I mean, you've had a couple of tough games against teams that have been fighting at the bottom, and you've come out with the points. But these, and I think we have found the same sort of thing. Some of the teams that are perhaps in and around the relegation zone are more of a challenge than you'd think.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're going to be really physical and try and impose themselves on the game. And we've well documented a very big January, bringing in a lot of quality players for this, especially at this level. But these players are flair players. They're exciting players. You look at your Zararis, your Fabio Cavallios, players like that. Going away to Rotherham and Huddersfield are teams that are fighting for their lives. I mean, Rotherham are pretty much dead and buried. Let's be honest. But someone like for Fabio Cavallio to go to Huddersfield and get, every time he touches the ball, someone's pressing him, putting that physicality onto him. These kind of players will struggle with that. So it's a good job that we've got a bit of spine in the side like Jacob Greaves and players like Regan Slater that have been there, done that, and they're all right with the physicality because you've got to find that balance in the squad. And obviously, with these new players coming in January, it's about finding that balance now and getting them settled.
Were you happy with all the new additions and the players that came in? Was it a good window, some good business done?
Yeah, no, really happy. I mean, some of these players, it's pretty unbelievable, really, that we've managed to recruit them and bring them to Hull City. Especially with the teams that they're being. Well, that we was in competition with. I think, players like Fabio Cavallio could have gone to a Premier League side, could have gone to Leeds. Anas Arori, won the title with Burnley last season. I think he had over 10 goal contributions from the wing. Ivor Panda, I'm not going to pretend to know much about, goalkeeper that we brought in. I think he's one for the future. But, Ryan Giles as well. I mean, he's, 20 odd assists in 2 seasons. And we've not had a natural left back fit all season, which has been like the problem position for us all season. So it was a really good bit of business to bring him in. And you just feel like we've sort of littered the side. Well, I said on my episode that it feels like we aimed for the top 10 this season and we've got ourselves into a position where we can realistically try and get into the top 6. And I think the owners have turned around to Rosenia and gone, I know we're a year or 2 ahead of schedule, but do you fancy going for it? And Rosenia, being the guy he is, has gone, yeah, absolutely. And they've backed him this window and pretty much done a bit of a Hail Mary to try and get into the top 6 this season.
It's going to be tight around there, isn't it? Because what are you, 8th at the moment? I think level on points with Coventry and Norwich, who are 6th and 7th, and like a point on Tuesday, and you're back into the top 6. So you're certainly there or thereabouts. But it's going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, I mean it's mad because like the top 4 are just in a league of their own. So realistically, there's I think from 5th to about 15th are all vying for those final 2 playoff positions. So it's going to be whichever side can keep the most consistency, can keep their best players fit. I mean, Coventry to me look like the most likely side to sort of gate crash that top 6 because they've just gone on one of those late season runs that you always see in the Championship where they come from nowhere and end up finishing in the top 6. So I think Coventry, West Brom, us, and Norwich at the minute, I think, are probably the ones that are vying for those last 2 spaces. But Preston have appeared out of nowhere again. After looking, they were falling. It's a crazy season, so it's just going to be who can grind out those results now. What is it, like 14, 15 games left? Just try and stay in these big. I mean, we've got a huge month, a really, really tough month of fixtures this month. So let's see where we are at the end of this one, and go from there, really.
Glenn, I'm going to ask you to cast your mind back to October and that game, 2-1. I mean, we left it late, didn't we? That was Ryan Fraser with the winner at the end, but that was proper late. We went through that kind of phase. There was a couple of games, wasn't there, where we weren't scoring until about 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, and I think even back then we saw Hull away as before they signed all the players, we saw Hull away as a very tough place to go to. So to get that win in the last minute was 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 a brilliant 3 points and probably a 2-point bonus on what we actually expected at the start of the day. It's back then we didn't quite have the sort of style of play nailed down. I don't think there was a bit of toing and froing with team selections and whatnot, but that seemed to be the start of the sort of Ryan Fraser wee man cult starting, because that was when he started coming to the fore, coming off the bench and basically winning points for us left, right, and centre. So I expect Hull to be better than they were back then, but then so are we. So it's whether it has much relevance to the game on whatever day it's on. I lose track these days.
Tuesday, isn't it? Yeah,
Tuesday. Whether it's got any relevance to that, I don't really know. I mean, the last game was fairly even. I think from what I remember, if before we scored the late winner, if you had to pick a team that probably just about shaded it, it was probably us. But I think Hull seem to have. I know Liam Delap. I think he's injured at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah.
So with him,
I don't know when he's due back.
The likes of Philogene, a very dangerous attacking side. So I was more worried
Billy
about
Sharp.
Billy Sharp. Even he's about as old. He's about as old as me, but he's still around. Absolutely, and fair play to him. So I was more worried about Hull from an attacking sense than I am a lot of the teams that we've played against. So Hull are a team who I think could score goals against us, whereas some of the other teams we play, you look at their forwards and think, there's not a lot there. But with Hull, it's different. So it'll be an interesting challenge to see if we can keep it as tight as we did against West Brom, because you've got these line of three players in Philogene, Carvalho, Zarori behind Billy Sharp. I noticed in your last game, and they're going to take some watching. So it's going to be an interesting game.
How will you approach the game on Tuesday night, Anne? Is it have they been able to kind of like rotate the squad a little bit? Because like us, we've been playing Saturday, Tuesday. So is there a pretty settled starting 11 at the moment, or do you think there might be a few changes from the weekend and then with a view to another game on Saturday?
I think he felt like he's got a starting 11 that he's happy with, but I think realistically, I mean, like we say, Billy Sharp's been starting games, and I think he started probably more games than he expected to when signing. I'm pretty sure his role was meant to be come off the bench and score. If we're desperate of a goal in the last 10 minutes of a game kind of player. But with the injury to Liam Delap, and then Aaron Connolly got absolutely flatlined by Angus Gunn, so he had to have a few weeks off with concussion protocol. And then we signed Noah Ohio on loan from Standard Liège because of the striker issue that we had. So he's not been starting, I think, because he's so new, but he's looked really promising when he's come on, and I think a lot of the fans are clamouring for him to start because he's a very fast and physical striker, Ohio, and I've liked what I've seen from him so far. So I think there's a lot of fans that would prefer him to start, obviously, from Sharp, because let's be honest, he's 38 years old now. His goal scoring days probably are behind him at this level. Not to say that he's obviously not lost that finishing touch, but we aren't getting the ball to the positions where he needs to be, and we're asking him to play deeper, and I don't think that's his game. If you're going to play Billy Sharp, he needs to be in the box, and we need our sort of middle striker to drop deep and try and link the attack and bring the wingers into the game, and he struggles to do that, obviously, because he's not as quick as he used to be. So yeah, I think a lot of fans are clamoring for a higher to start. I think Omer, the Turkish lad we signed in January, whenever he's come on, he's looked really positive. It was a cracking ball for Greaves' winner against Huddersfield on the weekend. I think he's probably due a start. And Carvalho's been quite underwhelming, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop to the bench against Southampton. Last couple of games, he's really struggled with the physicality. I mean, Southampton probably aren't going to be as physically imposing as Rotherham and Huddersfield were trying to bully us on the ball. I think it's going to be similar to what it was in the MKM, where it's two teams that want to pass the ball and get and exploit space on each other and be a bit of an end-to-end game. So, I feel like he's got a couple of decisions to make in most positions. I think Seri's back available now after the AFCON as well. Obviously, he won AFCON with the Ivory Coast, so I think he had an extra game off. I don't know if he was saving him for Southampton, but we all expected him to be in the squad for Rotherham, but he wasn't. For Huddersfield, sorry. So he will probably go straight back into the starting 11 alongside Morton. But other than that, it's pretty much a settled starting 11 now. I think that barring Liam Delap, we've probably got our full strength squad for the first time in weeks.
That's not really what we want to hear, is it? But Steve, do you think there's a bit of added pressure because it's the game in hand? Because this is the one that got moved for the FA Cup, wasn't it? Of course, Leeds managed to get their game in. So this is we've been able to say, well, we've got the game in hand, and we won't be able to do that on Wednesday morning.
Well, at the end of the day, if we've won it, then it won't be a problem.
Yeah.
That's
the answer.
That's ultimately the way to look at it. And we've won 11 in a row at home now. So, I mean, you've got to be going into every home game. It doesn't matter who it's against. And actually looking down who we've got left to play at home, it's mostly, I mean, obviously most teams are below us, but it's mostly teams sort of 10th and below. So home games have got to be our bread and butter when everybody is keeping up the insane pace that the top four is. I mean, you're looking at currently the team in fourth, at current rate, are going to get 95 points, which is absolutely ludicrous. So there can be no let up. Unfortunately, you don't get to kind of throw in kind of sort of half-assed is probably the wrong word, but just a game where you're not fully up at the races as we were on Tuesday at Bristol City. So it's another one where you've got to go full steam ahead. But also what we do have, as we've obviously mentioned a lot this season, is the strength in depth off the bench.
Yeah.
And that where we can go full pelt for an hour with the starting 11, make 3 or 4 changes and continue to go at full pelt without affecting the quality of the 11 on the pitch, which is something as I say, most of the teams in the division don't have. Most of the teams can do an hour to 70 minutes, and then you're having to make changes for fatigue reasons. But the players you're bringing on are naturally not going to be quite as good. I mean, Hull's depth, looking, from what Ant said, does seem to be a little bit certainly deeper than it was when we played them back in October. But it's still, you would still expect that as the home team, as the form team, that we're going to be mostly on the front foot. But it's one where ultimately, actually, Hull's style of play, where they like to be open. Rosenior is very much of the same sort of mindset as Russell Martin, really, in that he wants to dominate the ball. He wants to be on the front foot and attacking. And I mean, it should be entertaining, but I do kind of think that might play into our hands, especially at St Mary's.
Do you think Flynn Downs will be back in on Tuesday, Alfie? There was we were hoping he'd be starting on Friday, because it was almost like it was going to be a catastrophe if he didn't. Turns out it was okay in the end. We might have come up with a solution for the games that he can't play, but I'm sure that Russell Martin would hope to have him back on Tuesday, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When the Saints media team came in at about 6:15 on Friday, they told me that Che and Flynn hadn't travelled, but I wasn't able to report it, and I was a little bit worried. I don't know, is the honest answer. I think he said that they were very close for Friday's game, and look, we don't know how honest he's being, because he could just be trying to make sure that West Brom prepare for all opportunities. But I'd like to think he'll be back, and if he is back, Flynn, he'll come straight back in. I'm pretty sure of that. There will be a focus on aggression and intensity, I think, because what Russell Martin was so let down by on Tuesday at Bristol City was, I think that just the lack of aggression, the lack of intensity, and he felt sorry for that because he didn't make the point enough after Saturday's game against Huddersfield, where they sort of got away with it because of a brilliant second half. He then didn't make the point to the players that they just weren't intense, weren't aggressive enough in the first half, and then that hung over and that carried on into the following week. So I think they'll be right up for it on Tuesday. I don't think there'll be any complacency. I think there'll be a nice sort of kick up the arse they've had in this really tough week, ready ahead of 2 home games. I'm intrigued to see what the 11 will be, because the team on Friday was designed specifically for West Brom. Does Ryan Manning come back in? And that means Jack Stephens coming out, which will be a tough decision for Russell Martin to make, because he's wanted to get Jack Stephens in for so long. He's come in and done so well. But would it make more sense to face a whole team which will probably try and be expansive themselves and try and play football with a team that has a Ryan Manning in and is slightly more, I don't know, forward focused is the wrong word, because they were forward focused on Friday, but I think you know what I mean. So I'm intrigued to see the 11. I think that if they're both available, I would put Cherdams and Flynn Downs both back in, but I can see the argument for sort of keeping Sekou Mara there, but maybe that's something we can discuss.
Yeah. I was going to suggest about Sekou. I know, Glenn, you mentioned him slightly when we were doing the preview just now, but did he do enough for you? Would you keep him in that number 9? Because that's what we were talking about in previous weeks, wasn't it? Taking that opportunity.
I think he's better at number 9 than Adam Armstrong is.
Yeah.
So if that's it, with Che Adams being injured at the moment, I was quite happy with Mara's performance, the same as Steve was against West Brom. So I would leave him there if for nothing else to enable Adam Armstrong to play on the right hand side where he's at his best. So, I mean, he may want to bring David Brooks back into the team, in which case Adam Armstrong will be centre forward. But I certainly think, whilst Mara didn't set the world alight, he didn't stink the place out either. So, and I do think the balance of the side looks better with either Mara or Adams playing up the middle, or Ross Stewart. Remember him? I'll keep mentioning him just in case everyone's forgotten him.
In case we forget him. Let's get some score predictions for Tuesday. And how do you see this one? Another 2-1 maybe? Because that seems to be the popular result at the moment. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, it's good. We're under no illusion how tough this game's going to be. I think it's probably done us a favour that this was rescheduled from when it was originally meant to be played, because we had hardly any players when we were meant to play it a few weeks ago. Injuries and AFCON and everything like that, we had like no players whatsoever. So it got rescheduled, obviously, and now we've got all our players in, and it seems like we've got a stronger side. So I'm a bit more optimistic than I would have been, but we 100% would be happy with a point from this game. I mean, look at the form that Southampton are in. The one loss in nearly 30 or something like that is crazy. The amount of quality that's at the top of this league from the 4 teams up there. So, and any points from your grounds would be good. So I'm going to be optimistic because I'm liking the resolve and the defensive structure in the side at the minute, and I do feel like that the attacking potential of this team will click eventually, and I feel like this is the game for some of these big players like the Cavaliers and the Zoris that have been a little bit underwhelming at the minute to really step up and make a claim. And like we say, big players win big games, and this is one of those. So I'm going to be optimistic and go 1-1.
1-1, right? Okay, Steve.
Just had a quick look down Hull's recent results, and basically every game is decided by 1 goal. The last one that was a bigger margin was New Year's Day, where they somehow contrived to lose 3-1 at Sheffield Wednesday. Not quite sure how you managed that.
We're against 12 men on that day, though, to be fair.
Fair enough. Tends to happen. I mean, I think it's weird. I think it'll be open, but I think it'll be a tight scoreline. So I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I'm still not wholly convinced that we've solved the defensive issues on the strength of one performance, but we've obviously still got goals in us. So 3-2 win.
3-2. Entertaining game. Glenn?
Not quite as entertaining as that. I feel that a lot of what will happen is these two teams will cancel each other out to a degree. I think it'll be quite tight, and I think it might be one of those games where we kind of edge it, but we come away thinking, yeah, that was tight. We could just as easily have lost that. But I think the momentum is with us at the moment. I do think Hull will be better than they were in the first game, but I think we will be as well. So I'll go for a 2-1 win. I think I can't see Hull not scoring, as Steve just said. I think that we will get caught. Flynn Downs will make a difference if he is fit, but I feel that this is a game where it's going to be very, very difficult to keep a clean sheet. So I'll go for a 2-1 win. Okay,
and Alfie to complete the set.
Yeah, did anyone go for a win against West Brom, or do we all go for draws or losses?
I don't think any of us were that confident, were we? I don't think anybody picked up points.
I actually even went further and put some money when I saw the lineup. I put a tenner on a home win just to cover myself in the hopeful reverse jinx, and obviously it worked. So
happy days. I will go for all the above reasons that they've named. I'll say 2-1 Saints, but I realised I forgot. I wanted to mention that I think, speaking of putting a tenner on when you see the lineup, I think Yab Bednarek is nailed on for a booking this week. On Tuesday, because it will mean he misses Millwall and Birmingham for a 2-match suspension for getting 10 yellow cards in the Championship, but it will mean he can play against Liverpool in the midweek, stay fit, and he won't miss any of the games like Leicester, for example, if he gets booked a bit later on. That doesn't reset the 10 bookings until 37 game weeks in the Championship. So I think he's nailed on for a booking on Tuesday.
Okay, well, bet responsibly, kids, and just bear in mind that we are nearly always almost wrong. So, Ant, thanks for coming on, mate. Thanks for that. Best of luck with the rest of the season, and yeah, enjoy Tuesday night. Cheers, Ant.
Yeah, cheers for having me on, lads. Good luck.
No worries.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.
Cheers.
Ant joining us there to preview that game.